The other day I was busy laughing at Ali from my rusty garden because she was busy planning changes, and look at me. Here I'm struggling to change up my corn garden to make it look exactly as I saw them in the videos I've watched. And so it continues, and I wasn't going to record it because I'm like, it's too much. But I'm going to record it because if I don't record it, I know for a fact that I will regret not having recorded the process. So here we go, time lapse. I'm going to add the bit that I had started yesterday, and today we carry on. Okay, first thing I did when I was considering making this change is to take measurements. The current bed as it sat was too wide, and the first thing I needed to do was to reduce the width of it in order that I could reach the center of it easily once it was all planted up. The other thing that was not successful the last time I did this was the fact that it didn't go as high as I wanted it. When it's done correctly, it looks like a 3-tier cake. I'll try and find a picture to show you what it looks like. And so this was me using the information Gemini had given me to try and work out what the dimensions of the new bed would be. For those of you who don't know much about corn gardens, I first discovered them a few years ago. They were popularized in Kenya around the time of COVID, when people were not traveling far, and therefore people in cities and with small gardens were struggling to get the vegetables they needed. What the government then did is it tried to encourage people to learn how to grow in small spaces that they had in order that they could provide for their families and possibly also create an industry and business out of it. The benefits of a corn garden are, within a 4 to 6 square foot space, you can have anything from 120 to 140 plants all growing very well and providing for your family and also allowing you to sell for those in Africa. I loved the idea of it because, as those of you who have seen my allotment tours know, I am now at a point where the space I have is filled with beds, and now the only way I can expand my growing space is to go upwards. And so this was my attempt to correct what I had tried to do in this space and make it into what I had hoped it would be. I didn't get very far with doing this bed that day because I was so exhausted. So the next day I went back and started putting it together, not bothering to record, when I suddenly realized, I need to record this because otherwise I will regret it. And so I decided that I was going to just time lapse it all and see how I went. I can't believe the silly camera turned itself off and did not record any of that. But I'm getting there. And now the one thing I didn't do in my original corn garden, which I have to do in here, is to create a way of watering that will actually ensure that I can get water into the center, because some of the lower levels had very dry soil. Although when you go farther down, it is wet. So I'm going to sort that out now, and let's start the time lapse again. And this time I'll keep an eye on it because I really, now that I have decided I want a memory of it, I'm going to get a memory of it. A key error I made in my initial multi-storey garden, or corn garden, whichever you like to call it, was I did not provide a central watering channel which would allow me to ensure that the soil throughout the bed would be well moist continuously. What I noticed when I was breaking this bed apart was the fact that there were some areas which were rather dry, and so I was going to use something to try and ensure that the center part of the bed had some way of being watered. I decided to use my in-bed composting bin, which would provide me with not only the opportunity to water down the center of the bed, but also to compost in place in order to provide the bed with nutrition. as you may know if you're a gardener, during the growing season, our compost bins get filled very quickly, and it takes time for them to sink down enough for us to add more material. So having such bins such as this allows you to be able to compost in place whilst you wait for your main bins to sink down enough for you to add extra material. The idea would have been for me to do this over a few days, especially with my recent surgery. However, as gardeners know, we do become rather obsessive when we see a challenge and want to see our finished vision before us. And so I continued past the point of pain and paid for it overnight. Guys, I am loving how this is turning out. But I'm not going to take it any higher up, because one of the key challenges I had with my previous corn garden was the fact that I couldn't reach the middle. So I can't expand it any higher without being unable to reach the middle, because despite the fact that I'm not extremely short, nor am I tall, the middle for me, I've got short trunk and long legs. So because of that, I can stand high, but my top half can't reach the middle. So it's going to be a 4-tier corn garden. Disappointing though it is, it's also a great result, because I'm sure I'll be able to fit in plants, and more plants than I would if I had a single bed just sat there. Something else I discovered is my in-bed composting that used to sit down there when this was one whole bed that I didn't take out, but right now I ain't got the energy to take that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that I mulch this well enough to cover that up and make sure that it doesn't become an entry for pests. So after I finish, we're going to be putting wheat membrane down round the sides, except for this section here, because after I create a path going this way, I'm thinking that I can still have a little bit of a design on the edge. So watch this space and see what Stella ends up doing, because Stella is always thinking of ways to create a little bit of design, despite the fact that that's not what we're here for. We're here to finish the corn garden, but I think I want to do something to this edge to make it nicer and to cover up that little bit of in-bed composting container that I deliberately, because I was exhausted at the time I was doing these, I left it in the ground because I couldn't be bothered to move it. And now it's in a position where I cannot move it because it's sitting on my bed. So that bed is going to have to be created to hide it and continue to make it work as part of what I've created now. So let's go. I think I have an idea. Okay guys, I think this is as far as I'm going to take it today. I think I'm almost there. I like what I've done and I'm happy with the outcome of it. Let me go to the other side. Okay, There it is. My corn garden re-engineered and made to actually look as I wanted it to look. The other one's totally and completely flat. I'll see if I can actually find an image. So this one is really good. As I was saying, this one is really good because I can reach the top nice and easy, whilst with the other one, I used to go further down and I couldn't reach to the center easily. I've still got enough space to grow my bits. I've added about 4 more small beds in which I can actually put more, but this will work well. And the reason you saw me stepping on it is to compact the soil, so when you actually have the breakdown of, this was manure, because I used a lot of manure in here when I was setting the bed up, and some of it was not broken down. So what I did is I compacted it. However, I've also created not only an in-bed composting bin, but also one that will actually take water all the way down to about here, making sure that everywhere that I'm growing gets flooded with water. This will also be a composting bin. So I filled it with some of the leaves from the wood chip, and what I'm now going to do is I'm going to water. The bricks were in there because I suddenly realized that when you're making it, if you've got bricks, they'll give you the right distance you need in order to make sure that you've got enough space for growing. Because what they say is, hold on 2 seconds. What they say is when you're making a corn garden, you need to have at least a 10 centimeters gap for putting your plants in. And this brick is 10 centimeters. Whilst here, I made about 10 to 12. So I made 12 centimeters. They say 10 to 12 centimeters, and that should be more than enough space for growing, because all you need is that. And once the root is in, the rest can hang over. So hopefully it will work well. So now I can actually take these guys out. And for now, I'll just put them around, because this is now ready for growing. I hope you think it looks as good as I do. It's like my mini cake. I'm happy. I wanted it done today. I'm happy I've gotten it to this stage. All I need to do is get some leaves to mulch the top in order to maintain the moisture once I water it. And I will not water it until tomorrow. I'm just going to spend the time, remaining time, because it's now 5 o'clock. So I'm going to spend the rest of the time watering all the other beds which have plants in them. But for now, have a good one.